Mute, mute, mute. Good morning. Welcome. I'm Julia Flynn Worry, and I'm coming to you live from the East Coast. It's 10 a.m. Daylight Savings Time. And I'm coming to you from Baltimore. I'm Julia Flynn Worry, and you have found Make Some Money, Honey Monday Momentum live with Julia Flynn Worry, Sarah Coolidge, Linda Kay, and Brenda Graham. And I'd like to introduce my first partner to you, and that is Sarah Coolidge coming to you all the way from West Coast. Sarah, you got to unmute. I'm
I'm
sorry,
trying. Am I unmuted now?
ma'am.
Well, that's great because I'm having really interesting screen experience there. Oh, I can see my chin, and that's it. Good morning, everyone. It's 7 o'clock here in California, which means now that it's daylight savings, that it's dark again. So, congratulations for being up and running and ready to go Monday morning with your small business, your home based business. We know that you have to treat it just like a regular old job if you want to have success. So that's why we're here so early in the morning on Monday, help you get your week started rocking with really good momentum. So when you slide into home base on Friday, you're feeling really good about the work you got done. So congratulations for joining us. Back to you, Julia.
Well, that is exactly right. And we have a wonderful, very exciting topic that we're going to tell you about today. But before we do that, I want to introduce the next member of our panel, and that is Brenda Graham coming to you from, where are you coming from, Brenda? Oh, unmute, my dear.
I'm coming to you from Columbia, Maryland, and I am Brenda Graham, Success Mentor. And the crown is because I am the queen of network marketing.
Absolutely, you are. You are the queen, the MLM queen, as we say. And last but certainly not least, coming to you from the Northeast is Linda Kay. Linda, introduce yourself. Tell us who you are.
Good morning. I am Linda Kay, and I am so excited to be here on a bright sunny day. Sorry, Sarah. I love this sunshine, and gosh, here in New Hampshire, we're actually starting to get an inkling that spring is actually coming soon. So
I'm with you.
happy Monday.
I am with you. I am 100% so thrilled that it is daylight savings time. I tease my husband all the time and say I just want to live this way. But I just want to say welcome to everyone who is watching us and who's watching us in replay. We are delighted that you're joining us. Today we have the coolest topic in the world for you, one that is very close to my heart. I know I say that often, but this is really true. The underlying message here is fortune is in the follow up. In other words, you make more money when you do more follow up. It kind of leads from the issue of you can't take the first no when you're selling, you have to keep going back. But it's even a little deeper than that. It helps us to dive and delve a little deeper into the sales process and how we can make more money. And I'm so excited to be hearing from all corners of the country today on different ideas and techniques and tactics on how we can follow up and what the results will be. And I don't want to start by talking, I want to hear from our panel. And this morning, I'd like to start with Sarah. Sarah, what do you think? When you think of fortune as in the follow up, and what do you really think is a great tip for follow up?
Well, I want to make sure I'm not muted since I'm not in control. There. Good. Oh, look. You know, to me, really, the big thing about follow up, I mean, there's so many things we could talk about, but when we remember to take care of and pay attention to our existing customers, to the people that we've already won over on some level or another, I think that that's really the biggest, most important thing when it comes to follow up. Obviously, we're all out looking for new customers and new clients, but you know that there is a tendency sometimes to sort of forget about the people that have already joined our ranks and are buying from us or are friends with us even. And there's a lot there because of course everyone knows lots of people. So if you take really good care of the customers you have right now, keeping them informed, giving them valuable information, just remembering them, saying hello once in a while, that will go a long ways to solidifying your business. So that's my number one first tip today.
I really love that tip. That's a really, really good one, Sarah. Thank you for sharing that one. You did bring to mind a wonderful company that I've heard of that you can send out greeting cards to stay in touch with previous customers, and I've always been a fan of that. I work with someone who occasionally joins us who is terrific at follow-up. He constantly sends out an anniversary card, a thank you, a birthday, that kind of thing. But the next question that I really have is, Brenda, I'd like to hear from you on this topic. When do you think that it's, or how many touches with a prospective new customer should you make before you're considered um, being rude or going too far? What is that line in the sand? And I want to make sure you're not muted, so go ahead and unmute. But Brenda, how many touches is reasonable?
5 minimum, and when touch, it's soft touch, and I will give you an example. Sunday, I went to a birthday party, and there was a gentleman that I had given a sample several weeks ago, and he was still complaining about, the same issue, and so I simply asked if he had used it. He had given me a really, because I gave him a sample, he gave somebody else a really great referral for me about that product, but he had never used it. So somebody else, that person was at the birthday party, and he came over and he asked me if I had any with me. And I did not, because I didn't want to use a birthday party as a selling occasion, because it was a special occasion. So you can't have too many touches, and you never know when they're going to work, and you never know. It's just, it was the gratitude of my giving him something and giving him some information. Although he didn't use it, he still passed it on. So you never know.
Yeah, it's true. It's interesting. And how many touches is too many?
I don't think there is no too many, as long as it's a soft touch and you're not trying to overtly sell.
Okay, so it's not the number of touches, it's how powerful the touches are. Linda, do you agree with that? Do you feel the same way?
Well, I think the maximum number of touches is when finally somebody says, "I give up."
Okay.
Don't contact me anymore. But I think that is something that almost never happens in business. So it is important that we do follow up. And I recently celebrated a milestone birthday, and I was reminded of that yesterday by 5.5 weeks later, a surprise party, because of all the snow in New England. People could not plan there and get together, so there was a lot of back and forth emails and all this other stuff going on that I wasn't aware of. Had they systematized it, it would have been so much easier for them. But needless to say, I was surprised 5.5 weeks later to get a surprise party. So reaching out, touching people multiple times is really important, I think, in all businesses, whether it's trying to directly sell to a customer or to, invite them to a party. And as I said, systematizing is really important because, like I say, celebrate that milestone birthday. It's not as easy to remember and juggle all these things on my own anymore. So.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree with you. Systems really do help as well. It's interesting. I do have some thoughts, but they all go back to things that I've learned in other classical training. And some of that is that, number one, there's a number of touches through the sales process, and how many is that? And that's like 6 to 10 times that you want to communicate. But I'm a firm believer that you almost have to touch base with your clients about 12 times before your clients will buy from you or trust you and things like that. And it's an interesting point because some people will give up after 1 or 2 or 3 contacts.
Most people.
Yeah, and unfortunately, they might be on the cusp of making a purchase. But after the fact or after the presentation is really my other question. So I meet you, I touch you, say 3 or 4 times. I do small touches 3 or 4 times, maybe 5 times. Then we have a meeting / presentation. how many more times should I be touching you? That shouldn't, not directly, but how many more times should I touch the client before I've gone too far? And I think to Brenda's point, it really does have to be gentle, soft touches. There has to be a purpose. So maybe the next question that I want to ask is, what do you consider an appropriate touch? Give me an idea of what those touches are. And I say that because what I think of as appropriate touches would be sending some information, some educational materials, maybe an email or a thank you or something like that in written form. I personally am a firm believer in, you can't just always text or always call or always email. You can't do just one form of communication. You need to spread it across all the different channels of communication. And I'd really like to hear from everybody else. So, Sarah, what do you think?
Well, I think I'm not going to use the word touch for a little while. Your question about how to follow up after you've presented, I think that what we've all sort of established is following up, I think, goes on forever unless they say, will you take me off your list? I don't want to have contact with you anymore. Now, that you're in danger of that happening soon if you are really awful about how you're following up. So using those different varieties of techniques, email, phone, text, all of that, it's not important just because it's a variety and therefore you don't feel so much like you're hounding them, and they may not also be feeling that way. But some people respond better to text than they do to an email. Or they, if you just called me once on the phone, I'm way more likely to actually want to interact with you and buy something from you. So I think it's important for that reason too. But follow up until they tell you not to, or until they die, is kind of the rule that I've always believed in. And if you've given them a sample, like Brenda said, or you've given them something of value, then you have an excuse to follow up. So part of you set yourself up so that you may follow up. And another technique for that is to make all your interactions appointment to appointment. So it's just a habit that you get into with everyone that you meet, that, oh, okay, you would like me to call you? Let's plan when that's going to happen right now. Let's get it on our schedules right now. So it's just part of your routine, and it's not even following up anymore. It's just, call Julia. I have it on my calendar for 10 o'clock today, or whatever. I'm not sure if I'm really answering your questions, but one of the things that I was struck by with what Linda said about her birthday party, 5.5 weeks late, is that it's never too late. I bet she still enjoyed the party. I bet she didn't sit there and say, you should have followed up with me within 24 hours of my birthday, and because you didn't, I'm going to leave now. I don't think that probably happened. And it's a really good demonstration of how it's never really too late. You just have to be creative and genuine and warm, and you'll be able to follow up.
I agree with you. I do agree with you. I think that the other question that most people have asked me over time isn't the too much question, but the what is appropriate, and how often, and things like that, and what the duration, what the distance and time between contacts would be. Because if you bombard somebody, and I say bombard, like, you text them, you call them, you email them, you mail them something all within 24 hours. You've really worn out your welcome. And you have to remember that. And I think the number one way to prevent that is exactly what Linda just said, which is to create some sort of a system that will actually prevent you from too much and prevent you from them slipping through the cracks. So, Linda, I'd like to hear from you on your thoughts about a good system, or what you mean by that, or how you personally would use that tool.
Well, I think what's really important is that we're staying. Hold on.
Yeah.
Okay, I wasn't sure if I was actually.
You're good.
So it's really staying top of mind in front of these people, and whether it's through sending cards or sending a newsletter, an email, texting, whatever it is. One of the things that I like to do that supplements those things, and I haven't done far enough of this, is a customer appreciation party. I think it is a great way to reach out and touch people that you've been trying to get at for a long time, but maybe aren't as responsive, combined with, you know, the people that are currently your customers today, but throwing them together in that mix, letting them know that they are special. I think that's important. Systems to do this, one of the systems that I use is a company called Tools Rock, and I am a reseller for that, so feel free to to come through me for systems like that. But it's something that can help you manage and monitor the touches that you send out to these people. So if you're looking at your stats and you're saying they never open my newsletter, they never open my emails, you know, they don't follow up on, you know, messages that I've left, I think that ability to monitor and measure the touches that are going unresponded to are really important. So it's not just setting up a system to blast things out, it's setting up a system to really understand your prospects and to monitor and measure. Maybe it is too many touches if I'm getting absolute zero response.
Gotcha. I like that. I really like that information. Thank you for sharing that. And Brenda, I'd like to hear from you. You're muted, so unmute, but I'd like to hear from you. Do you use some sort of a system, or do you have something in your mind that you think is appropriate for do this, do this? Do you have anything like that that you work with as a tool?
Well, no, not a tool, but I do use the, Sarah, the CEO space, the scouting technique. So when I'm at a networking event, I don't say, I will scout for you, but I do let anybody I talk to that I think I might have a future relationship with as a client, I let them know that I will, you know, I will keep my eye out for them until that next meeting. And usually I'll do it with somebody who's in a monthly or an every 2-week group with me. And in that period, I will find some kind of contact or relationship to extend to them. And I will call them before that meeting to give it to them so that when I see them, we have a base for more conversation.
That's smart. So you're building in reasons. So that kind of makes me think about when I started my company, Word of Mouth, and where the whole system that my business came from. The program that I developed is actually something called Meet and Greet, and all it was a very traditional, before social media, before the internet, system of follow-ups. And what I have found with most people is they do want to know, first of all, why we follow up or what we're doing for follow-up and things like that. But I just want to really make a strong statement here that sales is a series of next steps, and that it is not the best practice to figure out how to eliminate steps and bring the number of steps down. It's actually a better practice to expand the number of touches, expand the number of reasons to communicate with somebody. So with that thought, I'd like to hear from Sarah. What are some of the reasons and ways and ideas for talking to people and reaching out and communicating with them and creating next steps? What are some of the hard and fast specifics that you use for that?
Well, I love what Brenda said, and I'm glad she did, because it's also one that I use as much as I can, which is that if you take the time to get to know somebody a little bit when you first meet them, or when you first have a chance to talk with them, and find out what it is that they're doing and what it is that they believe that would be really useful to them in their life, and you file that away in your head. And, if you do, at least for me, often what happens is the very next day or within a few days, I'll run across an article on the web, perhaps, or I'll meet somebody that's exactly that fit or close enough where I feel like it's okay for me to then reach out with something and say, hey, I remember you said that you were interested in this. Take a look at this. And it really, really helps to break down a lot of barriers, because, it's a value to them. And it's especially useful, of course, with someone that you really, really would, feel as though this would be a great person to bring into my network, to sell to get as a customer, but it works with everyone, and it's also hugely rewarding in and of itself. So to me, that's a really, really great way because it's so human, and you know, again, it's all network, it's all relationship. We're all just trying to build relationships, whether it's for sales or not. So, you know, that's one really favorite technique for me. But you have to take the time initially to get to know them a little bit, or it's not going to work.
Gotcha. I really love that, and I really do appreciate Brenda saying that. It's very, very true. The big thing that I'm really curious about though is the actual, like, the 12 things that you would do. So
Okay.
I would call you, or I would email you, or what you would consider to be the process of the actual action that you would take. So I'm asking everybody this, like, would you call the person first? Would you email them? Would you text them? What would you do? Or do you create a separate tree based on each interaction? So in other words, if my first communication with you is a Facebook email, what would my second, third, fourth, and what would the chain, or what would those 12 steps be for communication? I'm just curious if anybody has a program that they like to follow. I personally have kind of something that rolls around in my brain as to how I do it, but I don't have anything written down. And I'm really curious to see, for instance, if you talk to somebody by text, do you do like 3 texts and then an email, or
Yeah.
do you have some sort of a program that you like to follow? And I ask that because the reason that I ask that is because I'm really curious what works for us as far as follow-up goes. That's one point. But the second point that I'd also like to ask everybody about is, if you don't follow up, in other words, you meet somebody, you have a great relationship, just like what Brenda and Sarah were saying. You know, you hit it off, you find out more information, and you never call them again, and you never see them again. Do you make any money?
No.
No. Brenda, you're nodding. I want to hear from Brenda on this one, and then I want to hear from Linda, because I'm really curious. You know, have you had that experience where you thought, this is going to be the greatest thing since sliced bread, and then either you forget or something happens?
No, I don't forget. This is the follow-up is my weakest point. I meet people, I meet really great people. We have great conversations. I might touch them back once and I'll see them again and I'll give them the information. It's like I have this bug that says, oh no, don't contact or don't do anything else with them. I might make some money.
Ah.
Yes, this is. I would love to comment on this.
You may comment because I'm finished. Follow-up is my worst. It's my enemy. I don't do it enough.
Okay, so let's unwind that one, Brenda, and we'll change those words. Follow-up is something I'm really excited to learn more about and become really good at, because I can tell it's really important to me.
That's really it, and I want to make this another topic for another day.
Yeah.
This is a strong topic for me and my personal family, which is the fear of success or the fear of failure, and I'd like to put a pin in it for that topic for another day. But Sarah, what would you like to comment on this?
Well, I was just saying, you know, to me this is a challenge as well, and I think it is for a lot of people, and it may be around fear, or it's just we're busy, or whatever it is. But as we're talking, I'm thinking, you know, with your question, what's your system, sort of, and I thought, well, my system is catch as catch can, kind of. That's my system. And I think we should challenge ourselves and challenge everyone watching that, you know, we've all decided that there's no such thing as too much follow-up. There may be too concentrated follow-up or too harassing follow-up, but they're not too much. So what if we all committed to at least following up 10 times with everybody? I bet we would all see a big increase in our sales success. So that's sort of a challenge to all of you. And then look at the way you do follow up, and is it too heavy in some areas? So when you first asked that question, Julia, I was thinking, well, you know, I tend to email people, and I'm not so great about calling them. You know, some techniques are a little bit less, you know, you're not so close, so it's easier. And I think that we should also challenge ourselves with that. So, you know, if you have a system, Julia, good for you, and I want to hear about it. But if you don't, maybe we could spend just a few minutes talking about what are all the potential ways. You know, we've got mail, email, texting, calling. What else is there? Facebook, LinkedIn. I mean, there's a bunch, right?
Yeah.
Becoming a customer.
Well, yeah.
I become a customer of people that I want to form an affiliation with. And frequently, and Julia does the same thing, I know. And it almost always works. It's not expensive if what you're looking at is a product that you really need.
Mm-hmm.
And
Obviously.
so, it's money well spent.
Yes, and it's the practice of buy from people who buy from you, and that's the right thing to do.
Yes.
Buy local, buy from the people who buy from you, help them to support them and be proactive. I totally agree with you, and that's one that's often missed. Linda, we haven't heard from you for a minute. Do you have something, or you guys want to unmute and toss in the ring, or and then I'll share.
Well, the old saying of people spend more time planning their vacations than they do planning, retirement, business, whatever it is. So I think it's really important that we not, willy-nilly collect a bunch of business cards, let them accumulate on our desk. On Saturday, I had business cards from folks that I had met, last week, and I hadn't yet emailed them, followed up. So Saturday morning, I picked up the phone and I called them, and I was actually surprised at the great response that I got from actually reaching out with that phone call versus sending the email that's going to get buried. So Saturdays are actually not a bad day to connect with people. I've always traditionally thought, well, I'm not going to call them outside of the Monday through Friday 9 to 5. But you know what? They're busy with their businesses. And Saturday morning just might be a more relaxed time. So I recommend that. It worked for me this Saturday.
I like that. I like that a whole lot. This actually, and I don't know if you all can see it, this is actually the original program that I've always shown to my clients. And this started because I was a traditional salesperson, and I was bringing traditional sales specifically to the dental world. I was bringing this specifically to dentists. So if you can kind of see,
Yep.
Meet
This
Mail.
is your program, right?
This was my program. I don't
Affiliate.
actively do this any longer, but this is, let me bring it over. I don't really actively do this any longer, but just to show you. To this side? Okay. Meet, mail, email, and phone. You do that in succession 3 times. At the end of the 3 times, you have a networking open house. You have the networking open house where you invite everybody that you've contacted. Meet. That means physically get out of your office. Totally impossible for me most days. Physically get out of your office and go door to door and meet each individual person that you want to target.
Fabulous.
You're not going to sell them anything. You're going to take them a small gift. What was your question?
I just said fabulous. You've got a system. Yay!
Yeah, this is an old system. I developed it about 11, 12 years ago, but I didn't like invent this concept. I don't want anybody to think, oh, Julia's trying to take credit for the whole idea. That's not my point. I honed it and perfected it and came up with a really razor sharp specific system that takes about 24 weeks to complete. But this particular system worked so well that I had one client went from 25 referring doctor practices to 250 referral practices within 1 calendar year. So she went tenfold increase. But there's a whole system. I will stress to you that regardless of what the system is, as long as you're consistent, then you can always expect to have good results, because as long as you're continuously doing something over and over and over and over again, you can make sure that you're going to have good results by modifying and things like that. The second thing I want to point out, though, is that I do a lot of follow-up for people through social media. And there's 2 ways. There's the farming, and then there's the harvesting. So when I'm going out and I'm farming, I actually have a grid that I keep track of. And on this grid, it is what time of day I'll make the post on their social media, which social media platforms that I'll use, and which of 18 different communication messages that I'll be doing. Something funny, something charitable, something community driven, something of general interest, nationalism, professionalism, education related. You know, there's a list, and really, I'm hesitant to say specifically what that is because I want everybody to come up with their own concept of what that is that you can personally manage. I tend to go way too far, according to other professionals. They're like, well, that's so much. But what I would like to stress is if you have a regular schedule and a regular system of how you're going to communicate with your constituents, your members, your clients, your prospects, you break them into groups, A, B, C, D, and you communicate consistently over time, you will be amazed. So someone once said to me, when do you stop doing meet and greet? Or when do you stop doing follow-up? And this is what I said. You don't until every single person that is on that list becomes your customer and has referred to you 10 times. So if you have 80 people on your list and all 80 of them have referred to you 10 times, then you're done. Now, I got that kind of flippant remark because I was actually working with a group of people who, think about it like this, they're dentists. So dentists have a patient, and each patient can refer to 5 different people. So until all of your clients have referred you to 5 or 10 people, you're not done. Now, I know that's pretty simplified and silly, but I'm really excited about that. I want you to think of continuous marketing and motivating. We're a few minutes over time. We're actually just at 30 minutes. So I'm so excited that this was such a dynamic and enthusiastic and bubbling conversation because it means that this is a hot topic and this is an important topic for everybody. I'd like to do our sign off and welcome you back next week. I'm going to start with Linda. Linda, then would you kick it over to Brenda? Brenda, then to Sarah, and then back to me. Linda?
Linda at lindak.com. I can help you with some marketing automation.
Wonderful. Brenda?
Brenda Graham, the MLM Queen, coming to you from Columbia, Maryland, helping everybody do the best by mentoring them to the maximum that they can do.
I agree with that.
Miss Sarah?
Sarah?
Okay, this is Sarah Coolidge in California, and it's now finally light outside. Yippee! You can find me at ceospacewest.com and connect with me if you are interested in growing your business from where it is right now to where you want it to be. We close that gap for you. We accelerate it and do it faster. So thanks for joining us today. We'll see you next week. Have a fabulous week.
Absolutely. And my name is Julia Flynn Worry. I'm coming to you, Make Some Money Honey, from Maryland. This is the Maryland flag. I just want to say that I'm thrilled to see everybody. I'm wonderfully happy that we have such a great audience and that you join us every single week for 30 quick minutes to stay in Monday momentum and build your week. Join us again next week at 7 a.m. Pacific and 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Have a great day.
Bye.